Okay, looks like we've started. So this video is about what you need to know when you're going to buy a Gunther Gerzso print or any other print um, of artists. All right, and the reason I want to go through this is to sort of give you information for a more informed decision when you're going to buy. All right, now this is obviously for people who don't have much experience with this. Collectors all know this, right? And so a print, the thing that you need to know is, how much it costs to ship and how much it costs to frame. Okay, and these are in relation to the cost of the print. This is a significant amount amount of money, right? So, um, so so we'll go into detail about how much this costs and why it costs this much and et cetera. Now, the thing about prints is, and why people buy them is that they want an original work of art by Gunther Gerzso or other artists, all right? And that's an important thing, but they can't afford mixed media or oil painting, okay? So a print can be a tenth or a 20th of the cost of those type of works of art, right? That's, you could say, the good news. That's why people do it. The downside, or the thing that makes things a little bit more complicated, is that prints are very delicate. It's very easy to damage, and once you damage it, the value goes down. So you have to spend a lot of effort to ship them properly and to frame them properly. Okay, and but even with all those costs compared to an oil or anything else, it's still very inexpensive. Right? But there's a sort of what I could call frustration factor. Okay, it can be very frustrating to deal with this kind of stuff, and if you damage the print, even more. Okay, um, so let's talk about the shipping first, and then I'll talk about the framing. So anything up to 17 by 22 inches, right? Um, you need this is what I do. I've been shipping stuff for over 15 years. A lot of the crates and the packaging I've actually made myself. And the more expensive pieces, I worked with Terry down in Denver, which doesn't exist anymore. And I watched them, and they taught me an enormous amount about what it is to make a crate or the packaging to ship it properly. And this is, for regular UPS and Federal Express, and or what they call art couriers, which something I didn't even know existed until I started doing this. And art couriers are a special type of shipping outfit, which will make special care. But regular shippers don't spend the time to make sure that the things are not damaged. Okay, and so that's why you have to sort of take this serious. Now, good galleries, good brokers, good people will package things properly. And all right, so 17 by 22, going back to that, you need to use a cardboard, which is what I call double-sided or double width type cardboard. It has to be high end, that is very resistant. Okay, and you have to have foam or bubble wrap or whatever inside. You have to have 2 inches more or less on each side, and then the width can be a little less. But the thing can't be snug in the container. Okay, right? Now, if you're going to go high end, there's something called gallery supplies, and they have extremely good. When I first saw them, I couldn't believe how good they were. It's not only the stuff inside, but it's the actual cardboard. I mean, it's almost like having a wooden box made out of cardboard. Okay, it'll last forever, and they, cost for that size about $60. You can go to their website, gallerysupplies.com, and you can see what they have, and that's what, at least the galleries I've dealt with, they use that. Okay, now larger than that, then you need a wooden crate. Okay, and wooden crates. Now, if you buy stuff from me, then I make the wooden crate with my own 2 hands, and I've done it for years and years, and I've actually shipped stuff with Federal Express, UPS, even DHL, right? Now, if you're going to have a crate done professionally, I mean, I've shipped stuff which, the crate can cost up to $800 to $1,000. Okay, and some of them are that expensive because you're going to ship internationally. They have special specifications. But the ones I make with my own two hands, I get materials locally, and so it doesn't matter within the United States. It doesn't matter. Okay, so so I'll show some images of this, and then we'll get into framing. All right, so this is what I mentioned before is the cardboard box. This is made by Gallery Supplies. These are double-walled. I call them double-sided, double-walled, double thickness. I mean, there's like regular cardboard, but they have like 2 layers, okay, of cardboard, okay? And it's very high quality, and it's, it's not like a regular box which you open it on the top. It's like kind of a wallet thing. So you have a thing, you open it up, it's like in the top where it says up, and then you open it up as a lid, okay? And they're very convenient because you don't have to, once you open it, you don't have to discard it. You just, cut the tape at the end, open the lip up, and open it up, okay? So, but I say, if I have to do it, I mean, I can make the same with cardboard I buy at hardware stores. They have these, what they call heavy duty cardboard. If you get it big enough and, with tape, good tape, the type of tape that has, strands of nylon, which is indestructible, you can make something equivalent, okay? But the advantage of this is if you're shipping it around all the time, that's why they do this, okay? When you lend something to somebody, then you stick it back in and send it back, but it's maybe not necessary for a one-time shipping thing. Okay, it all depends on, what you like to do, all right? I keep boxes forever, all right? So I always think, oh, well, I might need it again, all right? All right, so this is an example of a crate. I don't know if I made this one, but this is sort of typical. I've made things like this. This is for bigger than 17 by 22. And so, the thing about this is they're screwed, the top and the bottom are screwed shut. Okay, there's no tape, and the screws are every 6 inches. This is sort of standard stuff. And for some reason, the people who do this like drywall screws. Those are sort of the most popular ones, and I like them too. Right? They're sort of self-tapping. You don't have to mess around with doing something before, like making a hole and then putting it in like regular wood screws. Okay. Now this type of crate I sent through, the airline baggage people. This is what it looks like inside. Okay, and so the work has to be placed inside, and it has to have foam, and I use foam board. Other people use other things, but the same, and it has to have 2 inches on either side, all right? And as I say, you have to be able to drop this off, a 1-story building, okay, survive. Okay, so what goes inside? This is what I do. Other people do kind of the same thing. This is foam board. I tape it on one end. It's kind of a hinge thing. And then I have these clips. You have to have enough space so that the clips don't damage the print, all right? And you can open and close it. It's very convenient, okay? And this is what I've been doing for years. That's how I ship stuff from Mexico, okay? It's what you put inside, all right? So here it's opened up, all right? So the print, I just shipped some stuff a couple of months ago this way. So the print is in a special acid-free slip, all right? This has been in storage for 20 years. You can see the condition's very good, okay? All right, now if you go okay, here's another example. This is a crate done professionally by the people at Mixografia. It's a long, complicated story, but I got some shipped to me recently. There's a Gunther Gerzso Mixografias. And this thing is, you can see it's 4 feet long, all right? And you can see it's the same way it manufactures. Here the plywood is an eighth, not a quarter. I like to use a quarter of inch, is that right? Okay, but they used an inch, but this was sent to me relatively recently, okay? And you can see it's every 6 inches. The screws, they also use drywall. I mean, getting into the weeds here, maybe most people don't care, but this is sort of like, okay. Now, once you open it up, in this case, what they did is that they put the mixografias in a plastic bag and wrapped it up, or a plastic sheet, wrapped it up, and then put tape on it, and then fixed it to, this plastic, which looks like the plastic version of cardboard. I don't know the name, but anyway, it's good stuff. All right, and they didn't put foam and stuff on either side. That's what I would have done, but each guy does. All right. Now that's what was there is a print. This is the frame version of the print that's in that box, and this was shipped from Los Angeles. So I opened it up the other day. It looked okay. All right. Once you get your print in the container, a cardboard or crate, your common sense says you take it to the framer to have it done professionally, or have somebody who does this. I mean, there are a lot of shops around, at least where I live, and I'm sure in other cities, they have people who do this and they know what they're doing. Don't try to do it yourself, okay? Unless you know what you're doing. But if you don't, it's then you can damage the print. Now, I mean, the easiest thing what people do is, well, I'm just going to get some tape and I'm going to stick it to foam board, and then I'll put some matte board, and I'll just put it in a frame and have the print, pressed up against a piece of glass or something like that. It's not a good idea. Mostly, if you don't have the right tape, in my experience, after many years, the adhesive will actually penetrate the paper of the print, and to get that stuff out with a paper restorer is not fun. Okay, and so it's just better to use the right materials. Now, it's better not to even stick the print with some double-sided tape or whatever. You should have some way of sustaining it inside the frame. And framers know how to do this. They have these little corner things, like with photographs, like in the old days. These corner things that will fix the print. And then you have the mat that sits on top, and the mat has to be acid-free. And then to protect the print from dust and stuff that's flying around in the room because of the air conditioning or heating, mostly dust, as you put some glass or plastic or acrylic. And now there are a lot of things on the web that you can look the stuff up, all right, and which is best. So I personally don't like glass, because when you move it around, it's very easy to break, all right, and I've had this happen to me. It's also heavy, but it's better than nothing, okay? If framers will probably want to do museum UV protected non-glare glass, and that's the most expensive. But an acrylic that has UV filter in it, which is good, is a good compromise. But everybody has their own. If you're an obsessive perfectionist, then do the museum glass, okay? But I don't like glass, I personally, because it's easy to break, what I've mentioned before. And then the other thing is that if you have to move it, once you frame it, then you have to move it to another house, then that's another thing. And then if you're going to ship it properly, then they have this tape which they put on the glass, so if the glass breaks, it doesn't damage the print, okay? All right, so that's another thing. But the important thing is not to have the print up against the glass or the plastic, and to have all acid-free materials. And when I sell a print, I don't like to sell it framed, because everybody has a different opinion as to what they like. So, you can always, there's always one reason why you don't like the frame. It's too dark, it's too black, it's too green, it's too red. I like red. I like neon. Okay, you never know what people like, so I don't try to do that. But the important thing is to do it properly, professionally. Okay, or there's a frame shot. Now, Michael's, is a good option, but they're, even though they are more inexpensive than other places, they're still, if you get all the materials, a matte sheet, and then I'll finish. A matte sheet will cost, acid-free costs $40, just the sheet. Then you have to cut a hole in it. And what you do with the leftovers. Okay, etc. All right. So I'll show you some images. All right. So this is a mixografia, which is framed. This was framed in Mexico, and it has glass. I mean, it's professionally done, and but it weighs a ton. I mean, it's very heavy. And the other thing about glass is that if you have to mount, put it on the wall, you have to have very good picture hangers. Okay, so that's another thing about glass. This one I've had now for many years, and it looks fine. This was the mixografia is mounted on a kind of a cloth background, I guess you could saw. All right. It's actually quite nice. All right. So this is another print also made in Mexico, framed in Mexico. It has an aluminum frame glass. They also like to mount it on a kind of a fabric background. Okay. Also glass. These are particularly fragile because the aluminum is not very strong. So if you bend the aluminum, it breaks. Okay, so that's why I like the plastic. But this was in Gunther Gerzso's house. I mean, it was framed probably maybe 30 years ago. All right, still looks good. Another one. All right, they seem to like to mount it. I guess they call it a float. I don't. Because they like to mount it on a back, some illustration. I don't think they use foam board, a kind of illustration, cardboard or illustration board, right? Wooden frames, in this case. Another one, this frame is like 30 or 40 years old or more. It's also in Gerzso's house. Mexico City, for many years, this is another interesting point about these, is that the Mexico City, the 80s, the 70s, the 80s was one of the most polluted cities in the world, okay? And so if you didn't have a frame with glass on it, it would ruin the print because the soot would be such that you couldn't get it off the print, right? So that's another important thing. So if all these additional expense and effort to get a print, an original Gunther Gerzso print, or any other print of anybody else, is acceptable, then this is for you. Okay, now a lot of people probably think it's too much bother, and I have friends who say this to me, and I say, well, it's not for you. As the old joke is that if you ask how much it's going to cost, it's not for you. Well, it's not that bad for prints. But now another option is, of course, reproduction, which is also produced. I have sort of limited about 10 images, but I can get more. Get them through the Trident booksellers in Boulder. There's a link on my website, which is www.gunthergerzso.com. GUNTHERGERZSO.com. Somebody told me the other day, well, that's too long. Well, then just Google it. Google Gunther Gerzso prints or Gerzso prints, and you'll end up on my website. Somebody actually told me that. But what you should not do, and then I'm going off into a tangent, Yes, so I'm going to put a website called prints.com, and I will really be unique there, right? People will find me immediately amongst all the other ones. But anyway, I digress. All right, so now with reproductions, it's kind of the same thing. I mean, this thing costs, this one in particular is Arcano. It's a reproduction of an oil painting. I think that's right. So, and it's 160 bucks retail. It's acid-free, properly framed. It's the same routine, properly framed. It'll last 100 years, okay? Um, Acid-free matte, UV acrylic, okay? So you can spend probably as much or twice as much to frame this properly. I mean, you can probably get away with less, all right? Now, the thing about these reproductions that if they get damaged, you know, it doesn't matter. It's not an original work of art, and that may be an option too. You know, so if you have to move, it's not the end of the world to get rid of it. You know, you can sell it for, you know, whatever anybody wants to pay for it. All right, so in conclusion, I'd like to tell a story. I always like to tell stories. How did I learn about chipping? And I learned the hard way. When I was in School of Architecture in Mexico, and I was living in my parents' house, which is normal in Mexico. They don't do the thing about shipping you off to a college and undergraduate dorm, although I did that too. And my father got a commission from a customer in the city of Monterrey, which is north of Mexico, and they wanted to make a sculpture based on his design. And so he designed his artwork. I always say he's art by design. So he designed the sculpture. That's the fortunate thing. I have somebody like him because he drew out the actual plans of the sculpture to scale. And he asked me if I could make the model, and I did. And I spent days and days making the model out of illustration board or similar. And they said, well, the customer said, well, or the client said, we want the model to be shipped to Monterrey. Okay, and this is a true indication of that we didn't know what we were doing. So I made the model, and I made the crate. I made a wooden box, and then I put the model inside the crate, standing up, and I fixed it to the bottom of the crate. Okay, it was made, it was cardboard with Elmer's glue. All right, it was standard stuff that everybody in architecture does, okay? Now, in those days, they didn't have FedEx or DA or any of this stuff. What you did was that you took it over to the bus stop at the bus station, and the bus companies had, a freight option. I think it was true with Greyhound at one time, okay? And then they would, the package was picked up in Monterrey at the bus station, okay? All right, so we did it, we sent it, and then a couple of months back, they sent the crate back. And we opened the crate, and the model was completely destroyed. Okay, obviously by the handling, it got torn from the base, and then it rattled around inside. There was no, peanuts or anything. It was just sitting in the box. It's everything you should never do to ship something. And the bus people are just as, rough with stuff as the airlines, okay? How should it have been done? Okay, and it was very easy. Wooden crate, which I made, then you make a little wooden box inside, cardboard box, sorry, and then you put the model inside with tissue paper, okay? I don't know if they had peanuts in those days, but with tissue paper, put it in the cardboard box inside the crate, and then put packing paper, newspapers around it. So even if they throw it back and forth from the bus, the thing would have been moving around inside and it would not have fallen apart. Okay? The same basic principle with the print, with any work of art, the same thing. Any art shipper will tell you. Okay? So I hope this is helpful. This is not a very glamorous YouTube. I doubt this thing will go viral. All right? But I have people who want to know how this is done and how much it's going to cost, and and then they they can decide if they want to buy something or not, either from me or anybody else. All right.